Hello there, you're watching Now 24 Nightly News with me, Madam Zan. To the headlines. Algeria officially joins the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation of ASEAN. Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf calls it a milestone in relations with Southeast Asian nations. And widespread regional welcome follows the signing ceremony in Kuala Lumpur. Israeli airstrikes kill and injure dozens in new attacks across Gaza. Palestinian resistance launches fresh operations in Khan Yunis and Gaza City. Hamas says the resistance will announce the terms just as it shaped the rules of engagement. Also coming up tonight, human rights groups denounce a Moroccan-led delegation's visit to the Zionist entity. Civil society organizations slam rampant corruption in the kingdom, driven by organized networks and the policies of the Mahsen regime. And Kremlin says Russia is expecting U.S. President Donald Trump to continue efforts to resolve the conflict with Ukraine. Zelensky says a massive Russian attack has hit Ukrainian cities. Hello and welcome again to the details of your program. First, in our file, Algeria has officially joined the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. Algerian State Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, signed the accession document during his participation in the opening ceremony of the 58th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Malaysian capital, Kuala Lumpur. According to a statement from the Algerian Foreign Ministry, the opening ceremony was attended by Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, whose country holds the rotating presidency of ASEAN for the year 2025. In his address, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf thanked ASEAN members for supporting Algeria's accession to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, calling it a key step and a milestone in their relations.
The great privilege to be here and to stand before you today as my country has formalized its accession to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the government of sisterly Malaysia for hosting this signing ceremony and for the opportunity given to me to be part of this genuine family reunion. I wish also to convey my deepest appreciation to all Asian member states for welcoming Algeria's bid and for supporting its accession to this important treaty.
The Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf said that Algeria's decision to join the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation reflects its appreciation for ASEAN's global efforts, especially in Africa. He stressed Algeria's commitment to strengthening ties with ASEAN and upholding its principles aligned with Algeria's foreign policy. Let's take a listen.
Our decision is rooted in a profound admiration for ASEAN, an organization that has ably shown through actions, results, and achievements how regional cooperation can drive transformation, foster stability, and generate shared prosperity for all. By joining the TAC today, we seek to add a new dimension to these bilateral relations, a dimension that includes ASEAN as a genuine united bloc whose collective voice and positive influence continue to grow on the global stage. We take special pride in sharing with all ASEAN member states a steadfast commitment to the principles of the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, principles that are equally enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations.
On this occasion, Attaf stressed the urgent need to renew global commitment to ASEAN's principles amid a rising tendency to resort to force, deliberately violate international law, and sideline the United Nations, trends he described as deeply troubling.
I'm sure we can all agree that our world is in urgent need for a renewed commitment to these principles, especially in light of the deeply troubling patterns that are unfolding before us. Of great concern among these developments is the growing tendency to openly resort to the use of force in defiance of all established norms, principles, and rules. Of even greater concern is the increasing inclination to deliberately violate international law, including the core principles of the UN Charter.
Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf reaffirmed Algeria's commitment to working with ASEAN in defending the values of peace, mutual respect, and genuine cooperation. He stressed the need to prioritize diplomacy over confrontation, the rule of law over force, and multilateralism over unilateralism. Let's take a listen.
In the face of these developments that are reshaping the global landscape, Algeria is committed to working alongside ASEAN in advocating for the values of peace, mutual respect, and genuine cooperation. Algeria is also committed to joining hands with ASEAN in promoting respect for international law, including the principles of the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation. And Algeria is finally committed to closely coordinating with ASEAN toward ensuring that diplomacy takes precedence over confrontation, that law triumphs over force, and that multilateralism prevails over unilateralism.
And Malaysia's Prime Minister welcomed Algeria's accession to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia during Malaysia's presidency of ASEAN. He entrusted Minister Attaf with conveying his greetings to President Tebboune, affirming his commitment to joint efforts to enhance the partnership between Algeria and Malaysia across various sectors. Representing the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algerian Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi arrived on Wednesday in the Japanese city of Osaka to oversee the celebrations of Algeria's National Day during the Expo 2025 in Osaka. Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi, accompanied by Algerian Minister of Culture and Arts Zuhir Baloul and Minister of Tourism and Handicraft Houriya Meddahi, attended the event held under the theme Designing Future Society for Our Lives. According to a statement from the Prime Minister's office, Algeria's participation includes cultural and artistic displays aimed at showcasing Algeria's rich heritage, cultural identity, and proud struggle for independence, as well as its economic and investment potential. And in occupied Palestine, 80 Palestinians were killed and dozens injured in ongoing Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip since early Wednesday morning, according to hospitals in the territory. Israeli shelling on the Mawasi area in Khan Yunis resulted in the deaths of 10 Palestinians and left several others wounded. Occupation forces also targeted civilian tent sheltering displaced people, including children, in the Al Rimal neighborhood, killing 5 and injuring others with varying degrees of severity. 2 more Palestinians were martyred and others wounded in an Israeli strike targeting civilians in Jabalia and Al-Balad in northern Gaza. Meanwhile, dozens were martyred and injured in Israeli bombing of Al-Shati refugee camp west of Gaza City. And on Wednesday, the Al-Qassam brigades announced they had targeted an Israeli Merkava tank and an armored personnel carrier with Al-Yassin 105 shells in the Abasan Al-Kabira area east of Khan Yunis. They also struck 2 military bulldozers with the same type of shells and confirmed killing an Israeli soldier during the clash. Saraya al-Quds, the military wing of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, announced that its fighters successfully sniped an Israeli soldier at the summit of Jabal al-Surani in the Tufah neighborhood east of Gaza City. They also broadcast footage showing what they described as mortar shell attacks by their fighters and other Palestinian-resistant factions on Israeli troops and military vehicles in areas of incursion in Khan Yunis.
نسأل الله الثبات والتمكين. يا رب سدد، يا رب سدد، يا رب تقبل.
And Hamas says it is continuing serious efforts to reach a comprehensive agreement that ends Israeli aggression, ensures safe humanitarian access, and eases Gaza's worsening crisis. In a statement, the group said it has shown flexibility by agreeing to release 10 captives while key issues remain under negotiation, chiefly aid flow, Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and guarantees for lasting ceasefire. Despite challenges, Hamas says it remains committed to working with mediators to end the suffering and secure Palestinian rights to freedom, security, and dignity. Yes, President Donald Trump said the situation in Gaza is a tragedy and that all parties want to reach an agreement to end the suffering. During a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the second in 2 days, Trump said the talks reflect shared desire to find a resolution to the crisis in Gaza, adding that everyone hopes for a deal by the end of this week.
He's going to come over again tonight. We're talking about Gaza, mostly Gaza right now. I would say almost exclusively Gaza. We got to get that solved. Gaza is a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And he wants to get it solved, and I want to get it solved. And I think the other side wants to get it solved. Steve, could you talk on that, please?
The spokesman for the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, Khalil Al-Dakran, said that the healthcare system in Gaza is in a catastrophic state due to daily and repeated Israeli attacks on the hospital's medical staff. In a press statement on Wednesday, Al-Dakran said the medical teams at Al-Aqsa and other hospitals in Gaza are working around the clock under extremely difficult conditions amid a severe shortage of medical equipment, supplies, and fuel needed to generate electricity.
The occupation army is targeting medical personnel, and the reality and situation that we live in as medical personnel within the health system is a very tragic situation, as our medical crews work around the clock day and night and work in very difficult conditions in the absence of sufficient medicines and medical supplies, and in the lack of quantities and the absence of power to operate electrical power inside the hospitals. And the condition of the normal staff in social life is no different from the conditions of the citizens in Gaza Strip, from direct targeting and repeated displacement, forced displacement by occupation army from place to place.
الاستهداف المباشر والنزوح المتكرر النزوح القسري من قبل جيش الاحتلال من مكان لمكان.
As part of its ongoing assault on Gaza, Israeli forces have desecrated cemeteries through bombardment and bulldozing. With dozens of Palestinians killed daily by Israel's war machine over the past 21 months, residents are struggling to bury their dead as cemeteries reach full capacity. More details with Usama Ayat.
Even death no longer finds a place that preserves the dignity of the martyrs. Gaza today is too small for burial space. In the Gaza Strip, the tragedy is no longer in who dies, but rather where they are buried. Today, the martyrs are crowded around a single grave amid a barbaric and relentless war. Here in the Gaza Strip, the ground is filled with corpses, and the cries of families rise as they wait hours to honor their martyrs with burials. Gaza opens old graves to bury new ones. Souls crowd into the ground, just as the living crowd in displacement and seek aid.
We dig any grave and bury them on top of it because the cemeteries are overcrowded. As you can see, the cemetery is full and there are many dead people. The cemetery is full. Wherever you look, it's all overflowing. But people have no other solution. Everyone who can leave their area comes to bury their dead on top of their relatives, their uncles, or any other relative.
The escalating aggression in the Gaza Strip has reduced the available space for burials, transforming hospitals, schools, and displacement persons' tents into cemeteries and emergency burial sites.
المقبرة في غزة في مقابل
In the cemetery in Gaza, opposite the Mahmadani hospital, we don't have any burial space. The martyrs here are buried together. Of course, in our eastern cemetery, I buried my 3 sons on top of each other.
Martyrs have no sanctity in a time of genocide, as graves have become targets to be bombed and bulldozed to erase the memory of a people underground. According to data from the Ministry of Endowments in Gaza, the occupation has destroyed more than 40 cemeteries across the Strip. Scenes of dignity are absent, even in the final farewells. The occupation not only killed Palestinians, but also confiscated their farewell lands.
The Moroccan Observatory Against Normalization strongly condemned the visit of a delegation led by a Moroccan national to the Zionist entity amid the ongoing genocide in Gaza, falsely claiming to represent European mosque imams. In a statement on Wednesday, the observatory called the visit by a known pro-Zionist figure a betrayal of religion, the nation, and human values, and a dangerous, unacceptable act.
We have closely followed the details of this crime. The delegation was led by one of the pro-Zionist agents in Morocco and was received by the head of the Zionist entity himself. This disgraceful scene represents a betrayal of religion, the nation, and all human values. We strongly condemn this visit and reaffirm that the Palestinian cause is one of faith and dignity and not subject to political bargaining. We reject this dangerous slide and these suspicious activities. The Zionist entities resort to recruiting some deceived individuals to polish its ugly image stained with the blood of innocent men, women, and children, reflects its political, media, religious, moral, and humanitarian bankruptcy.
The observatory revealed that the delegation was made up of mercenaries lured under the context or the pretext of visiting Al-Aqsa Mosque, including a Moroccan national who serves as an imam at a mosque in the Dutch city of Alkmaar.
We contacted an official from the National Committee of Imams, the Netherlands, who confirmed that these individuals do not represent European imams, except for one Moroccan national, an imam from Alkmaar, who joined individually. His mosque had no connection to him or to this disgraceful visit. The delegation members are merely opportunists, lured under the pretext of visiting Al-Aqsa, only to end up in the presence of terrorist leaders. Even more alarming was their participation in a Talmudic prayer at the Burak Wall, a serious religious and historical violation that contradict Islamic beliefs, Arab identity, and international law.
The Moroccan Association for the Protection of Public Funds revealed that decision makers in the kingdom, including politicians and influential figures linked to corruption networks, have embezzled billions through various projects, notably the Green and Renewable Marrakesh Initiative. In a press statement, the association's president Mohammed Al-Ghouloussi said the scandal is the result of a corruption mafia, which turned the project's components into shady deals to loot public funds. He asserted that those behind this embezzlement are elected officials involved in money laundering, seeking to establish a state built on corruption, in his words.
They targeted anyone who dares to criticize them or expose corruption, so this issue has nothing to do with defamation. In several cities and regions, there are mafia-like corruption networks that exploit positions of power and authority to serve their own interests. That's why we say this is not just a slogan, it's a reality. This model is represented by the renewable green spaces. A clear example is the Renewable Zones Program, particularly the Renewable Marrakesh Zones Program that was presented to the King in 2014. The program includes multiple components and was allocated a budget of 6.3 billion dirhams.
And Moroccan authorities barred 3 Spanish nationals from entering the occupied city of La'youn before subsequently deporting them, according to the Sahrawi news agency. The same source stated that these Spanish activists were stopped at a Moroccan police checkpoint while traveling overland from Agadir to occupied La'youn. It added that in recent years, Moroccan authorities have expelled nearly 400 foreign observers and activists from Western Sahara, most of whom were on missions related to monitoring human rights conditions in the occupied part of the territory. The Sahrawi human rights group Qudus condemned the continued arbitrary expulsion and denial of the entry of foreign observers into the occupied Sahrawi territories. In a statement on Wednesday, the organization said the recent detention and forced deportation of Spanish activists is part of Morocco's systematic policies aimed at silencing independent voices and preventing international monitoring of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed against the Sahrawi people. And Angola has reaffirmed its steadfast support for the Sahrawi people's struggle and their right to self-determination and full sovereignty over their national territory. According to the Sahrawi news agency, Mara Kiosa, deputy president of the Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola, stated during a meeting with the Sahrawi Republic's ambassador to Angola, Hamdi Ali Mejara, that her country's consistent stance in support of the Sahrawi cause aligns with the principles of the ruling party. Units of the Algerian army foiled attempts to smuggle 16 quintals and 45 kilograms of processed cannabis across the border with Morocco between July 1st and 8th. In its weekly report, the Algerian Ministry of Defense also announced the arrest of 7 individuals supporting terrorist groups and 42 drug traffickers. Authorities seized 8.67 kilograms of cocaine and a massive quantity of psychotropic pills, estimated at over 1.7 million tablets, during operations across various military regions. The second session of the Algerian-Mauritanian Security Committee began Wednesday in the Algerian capital. According to a statement from the Algerian Ministry of Interior, the two-day meeting aims to enhance consultation and discuss ways to strengthen security and operation coordination between the two countries amid a rapidly shifting regional environment marked by geopolitical changes, instability, and multiple foreign interventions. The statement added that the meeting comes in the context of major security challenges that require intensified efforts and coordination, as well as development of border regions. Moving on now to the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Moscow expects U.S. President Donald Trump to continue efforts to resolve the conflict with Ukraine, despite Washington's decision to resume arms shipments to Kyiv. Peskov told reporters that the Kremlin remains relatively calm about Trump's tough rhetoric toward Moscow, noting that the U.S. president is known for using strong language in his statements. He stressed that there are no fundamental disagreements between Washington and Moscow, and that both sides have a genuine desire to resolve the crisis through political and diplomatic means. U.S. President Donald Trump said that his country will be forced to send more weapons to Ukraine to help it defend itself against Russia. His remarks came less than a week after the Pentagon announced the suspension of certain air defense missiles, artillery, and other weapon deliveries to Ukraine. Trump also expressed growing frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying that Ukrainians are facing extremely heavy strikes. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Moscow launched strikes on his country, targeting more than 720 aerial objectives in a single day. In a statement on social media, Zelensky explained that the Russian assault relied primarily on 728 drones on various types, along with 13 missiles, specifically of the Kintal and Iskander models. The Ukrainian president confirmed that Ukraine's air defenses managed to shoot down most of the hostile targets, noting that Ukrainian interceptor zones or drones achieved dozens of confirmed hits. The Russian Ministry of Defense announced Wednesday that its forces had taken control of the village of Tolstoy, located in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. In a statement, the ministry said that territorial gains was part of ongoing operations aimed at expanding Russian control in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian forces carried out airstrikes targeting Ukrainian military airfields overnight, according to the Defense Ministry in Moscow. The U.S. Department of Treasury announced on Wednesday the imposition of additional sanctions on Iran. In a statement published on its official website, the department said Washington had sanctioned entities linked to Tehran as part of its continued efforts to target Iran's nuclear program. These new sanctions come as U.S. President Donald Trump expressed his willingness to lift sanctions on Tehran should an agreement be reached that would strip Iran of its nuclear and ballistic capabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, our program has come to a close. Thank you for your kind attention and have a great night.